episode number 6, featuring the famous Craig Sowers. This is my first boss I ever had in the industry. A lot of my values and the way I do things, templates and everything kind of stem from what I learned from him. And obviously you take different things from different people as you come up in the industry, but the biggest thing I took from Coach Sowers is this, what I do right here, is the curriculum and internship development, which he took very seriously, and obviously it means the world to me because it's why I was able to get to where I got, because he developed me so young and spent so much time with me. So we spent a lot of the first part of the episode kind of talking about developing a program, developing people around you, leadership skills, and then we shifted into programming at the end. He's been all over the place. He's had stints at UTEP, UCLA. He was the director at Akron, and he's worked with a few different companies where he's getting to talk to and seen freaking everything under the sun. So awesome freaking guy, amazingly smart. He's a master strength coach with the CSCCa. So brilliant guy. Has a ton of good stuff in this video. So enjoy it, guys. Soak it all in, and excited for you guys to meet Coach Sowers.
So I got my whole staff in here, Coach, and I told you kind of what we're doing with this curriculum thing, and when I think about, really when I started really wanting to develop other people, athletes, the people that worked with me, worked under me, it all kind of stems from what I learned, with you. And for you guys who don't know Coach Sowers, he's my first boss. So I worked for Coach my senior summer, going to my senior season at Mount Union. I interned here when he was the director here of the old Akron strength staff. So, but anyway, so a lot of the things that I do with these guys, is stuff that you took time to do with me. I guess to start, if you can just kind of start with how because a lot of coaches don't do this. They don't develop people. They just kind of come to work, train dudes, and then leave. They don't really worry about, developing the people underneath them. Why was that so important to you, and what made you really start doing that?
Yeah, you know what? I was pretty blessed in the fact that I had really big-time mentors coming up. Even as an undergrad, the guy I worked for was Mark Ryman, and he took me under his wing and taught me a lot. And then when I went to UCLA, worked for Kevin Yoxel and Mike Lind, and then my personal weightlifting coach was Mike Pertner. And so all of a sudden, get thrown into a situation like that, where I just had big-time individuals teaching me how to do things right, and not only be a good strength coach, but a good person. And then I got out of strength. I got out of the collegiate level for a while and went to the private sector, and that's really when it clicked for me. I worked for a guy named Troy Medley out in Southern California, and with Velocity Sports Performance, and he really taught me how to be a good manager and what that meant. And that didn't just mean ordering people around and telling people what to do. It meant developing people. And so my goal, all of a sudden, from working for guys like Yox and learning from Troy, was how many strength coaches could I get out there that came from underneath me, who I taught and developed and moved on to become, assistants and head strength coaches out there across the country. And so I found that through those individuals, how important it was to teach them. Troy used to always tell me, you can, a lot of managers or bosses will tell you to go build me a beautiful house. And so, I'd turn around and go bust my butt and build him a beautiful house, what I think's a beautiful house. And then he's up, it turns around and he ends up being upset because it's nowhere near what he wanted, which is in reality his fault, because he didn't tell me how to build that house and teach me. And so he set me up to fail. And so now going forward in life, I see it all the time. People that just don't train their employees and teach them how to do things right, and they really set them up to fail. And it's sad.
Yeah, no doubt. So you said like it clicked. What was it, and what were you doing before then? And then when you realized, all right, I got to start developing people underneath me, was there something particular that that made you want to start doing it, and what was the biggest thing you saw change once you started developing and focusing on more serving the people around you and really investing into them?
Yeah, I think just the, Troy, another thing that Troy always said was, it takes time in the beginning. So I would set up processes and procedures in the beginning, which would cause me to, take time out of my day, take time out of my busy schedule, and training people, right? That took time out of my day, but the results of that were more competent coaches and more competent people in general who, after the training process, became huge assets to me and the company that I worked for, the school that I worked for. And so just that's that kind of clicked in me, that I wanted to take all that knowledge that I was so lucky to get from some of the top coaches in the world and be able to give that back to individuals, and not just give it back to them, but give it back to them in a way that they could use it quickly, and better them so that they became better coaches for the athletes at the school that we were currently at, and then give them the ability to move on to bigger and better things. I mean, again, that was my goal. Is I didn't want coaches that were going to stick around and be in my assistants for 20 years. I wanted coaches that were going to be with me for 3 to 5 years and move on to bigger and better things.
Right. One thing we talk about here is, at least what I found is, when you empower people around you, when you delegate, when you do teach those people how to build that beautiful house that you want built, obviously we make mistakes, which I say is okay. We have such a amazing group of people that work underneath me that we don't make effort mistakes. We never make a mistake that is due to a lack of trying or a lack of passion or whatever it be. It's if we make a mistake here, it's a lack of communication, either from me to an assistant to an assistant to an intern to intern. From obviously you've dealt with that, especially working in a place you work. You've had to communicate with a ton of people while trying to develop and trying to empower. What advice do you have for me for that, and anybody trying to develop and make sure that everybody's on the same page of what that beautiful house you talked about is supposed to look like?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So again, a lot of props to Troy Medley. He taught me the importance of managing an individual differently depending on what the task is or where they are developmentally in that task. So, maybe the first time, I tell Coach Gildersleeve to build me a house, I tell him exactly how I want it, step for step, everything, fine details, everything that goes into it. But over time, that delegation changes. It goes from me telling them exactly what to do to a blend of us discussing it, and the ultimate goal in the end is that Coach Gildersleeve comes to me and says, okay, next project, you want me to build this house, and here's what I need from you to help me get there. And so that's what I really learned. And like you said, I liked that because it didn't stay stale all the time. I felt like it gave me more freedom to let people go. When I saw people be successful in areas that were strengths for them, I could cut them loose and let them go do their things. And so they got excited about that, even when that may not, and maybe I give them 5 tasks done for the week, and 2 of them they're cut loose on it. They know exactly what to do. So I have them telling me how I need to support them. And on the other 3 tasks, maybe it's a different management style, but it allows them some freedom and some growth in different areas, which I really liked.
Yeah, so you're the way I'm digesting this is, pretty much what you're saying is your employees are just like the athletes. You can't coach every single one the same way. You can't manage your employees all the same way. There's going to be different pieces of each employee that needs motivation or instruction maybe a little differently than other employee you may have had in the past.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody is the same just from really, it's all about the experiences, right? Not only in the way you manage them, but I tell people all the time, I can learn from anybody. So, too many people, I think, as they get older and get into professions are like, I've been doing this for 20 years. I know it all. I can't learn from this intern that just walked in the door. I think that's a crock of shit because that individual just walked through the door has totally different experiences than me. And so I can learn from them, and I got to deal with them in a different way. If I try to deal with them the exact same way I would expect things done by myself or another employee, I'm really going to screw things up and make life difficult for both of us.
Yeah, I can't say how important I think that is. I think way too many people I've either seen or heard stories about them working for something that the boss always says, or they think, it's my way or the highway, and that ain't the way it is. I mean, if you have if you as an open-minded person, it's just such a much better work environment when you do it. So I think that's huge for sure.
And you know what? I'll be honest with you. It took me a while. In the beginning, when I was young, I probably didn't think that way. When I first started out, it was my way, and we got to do it this way, and we got to work these crazy hours and all that stuff. And so, for me, the maturity of being in the business and learning more and more as I got older and more experience really opened my eyes to that. And so, I felt lucky. Unfortunately, some of my early assistants didn't get some of that, but the later ones did.
Yeah. No, I think another piece for me, which is along the same lines, is I love to know my assistant's perspective on things. Especially when you have confrontational moments with an athlete or a team, or you maybe thought it was a really bad day. I mean, you're not able to see every single thing from every angle going on. So I love to, we talk, we meet after every lift, and we kind of, what I thought maybe was a great lift maybe wasn't that good of a lift because, my 5 assistants have a different perspective, or vice versa. If I thought it was a shitty lift and they see different things, we need to talk about those things. And if you're not an open-minded coach who can empower the people around you, you would never know, what those other people's perspectives are. So I think that's a huge piece of it too.
Yeah, and you saying that also made me think of, like, people are so different, and you never know. Like, there would be times, for example, when I was at UCLA the second time with Coach Land, that there were certain athletes that just, for whatever reason, clicked with me. And neither one of us had an ego, especially Mike. I mean, Mike was the boss. He didn't have an ego and say, well, I'm the head strength coach, and so I have to work with this particular athlete, even though I don't get along with them. For whatever reason, I clicked with that individual. And so we just made sure that we had the athletes that we worked best with. And if there was an athlete that didn't work well with him, they were with me all the time. And so it really helped everybody.
That's awesome. I'm writing that down right now. I've never thought about it that way before. That's really good. From the leader, obviously you yourself have been a leader of a lot of freaking people, and you've been around some of the best in our industry. What are the qualities that make those people stand out when you think of commonalities that those guys have that got them in those positions? What are those qualities that they possess that you wanted to take from them that you thought made them so successful?
That's a great question. I think it was one of the things was that I knew that they cared. They cared about me as an assistant coach, and they cared about the athletes. And so nobody was ever below them or treated as a second-class citizen. They were a part of your team, a part of your group, part of your family. And so that combined with just the hunger to always get better, and to make everybody around you better, right? I've been in bad situations, and I've seen a lot of people who will step on anybody and everybody to make their way up to the top. And it seems to always come crashing down at some point. Whereas if you can build everybody up around you, then it's always going to make you look better. And that's, as I got older too, that's another thing. I stopped trying to hire people that were like me. I tried to hire people that had different strengths than I did. I tried to hire people that had slightly different mentalities, not different morals or values, but different mentalities and strengths, so that it made us as a team and a group better, rather than just trying to hire a bunch of me's.
All right, let me ask you this. So I agree, and I do the same thing. And the biggest thing is, at least for me, is that there's kind of a gray area there to me of, yes, I want people that aren't like me, but I also need people that I can get along with for 18 hours a day on a lot of different days.
Yeah.
So I guess, how did you balance that? I mean, whereas, was it like, all right, if I got 5 dudes, I can have maybe 2 dudes that aren't going to be my best freaking friend, but are really good at this and this, which I'm shitty at. But, I got to have, I always got to say, like, if I ever get to hire, 5 dudes, one of the guys I hire is going to be the guy that can keep me the most sane. I can get along with freaking anybody. But, every staff I've had, there's always been that one guy in one of those chairs that just calms me down when I need to be calmed down, or kind of, when I'm impatient, kind of, reels things back in for me. I guess, what have you found, or what have you seen that works along those lines?
Yeah, I mean, that is tough. I mean, I can tell you that when I was at UCLA the first time, it was me, Mike, and Lynn and Yox, and for the whole department. And then we slowly added people to that mix, and gosh, that staff was a unique situation where we got along like best friends, families got along, and we hung out all the time.
Right.
Not only at work, but outside of work. But that is a unique situation that has never, ever, ever happened again since then. And so, I think the best thing to do is just try to make sure, like I said, different people, but with similar philosophies and morals and values, because you do have to spend all day with those individuals. And the last thing you want to do is spend 60 plus hours a week in an environment that you're not happy in, and that you have people surrounding you that are bringing you down rather than building you up. So the hiring game too is another piece of it that makes good managers really good, and other managers just okay or bad because they don't understand the hiring process and what they're looking for. So when I went out there there were certain things that I had to have, and then like I said, then the other areas where I wanted to get people that had different strengths than I did.
Yeah, no doubt. So I guess, kind of summarizing everything, if there's a coach watching that, or obviously these younger guys here, as they start to get their own staff, and you kind of start to implement, I remember the best thing you probably ever freaking taught me to do was make protocol sheets, because I'd be lost without them. But as they're kind of starting their legacy, they start their program, they start to develop the people around them. Where do you start? Where did you always say, okay, this is the first thing I'm going to start with my staff? Where to get started with this stuff? Because it can be a little overwhelming.
Yeah, that's tough, because you're right. There is a ton of stuff to do, and I think the big thing is most important place to start, I'd say, with training your coaches. No matter where you're at or where you come from, there's going to be things that, if I came to work for you right now, there'd be things that I'd need to learn. Even though we have worked together in the past, there'd be things I'd have to come in and learn your system and the way you want things done. And so I think that's really, really important to start training your coaches right away, and making sure they understand that you're going to expect a lot from them, but you care about them, and you're just trying to make them better. And so the other thing that I would tell any of these coaches is that loyalty is by far one of the most important things when you're hiring somebody or you as a coach. Making sure that your coaches are loyal to you and you're loyal to them. Going in both directions. Your sport coaches, your assistants, and your assistants to you, because this is a cutthroat profession, and if you're not careful with the people that you surround yourself with, they'll cut you quick.
Yeah, no, I've definitely heard some horror stories, so we'll take your word for it. Kind of asking the vice versa. So I'm sure every person you've ever been around probably hasn't been the best, and I tell my staff, I've learned, every person I learn from or I see do things or watch, I try to learn what to do, and I also try to learn what not to do. I judge, but I don't judge. I observe both ends of the perspective or the spectrum. I kind of see. I would take that from them, but hey, I noticed this didn't work. The players didn't respond to this. What are some things you've seen from coaches, or maybe you've done yourself in the past, that you look back and say, shit, that just didn't work. That style, that quality, that trait, it just doesn't work in this industry.
Yeah, that list could go on forever. I think that's different for each individual and each situation and each athlete. My coaching style, and again, something that I had to learn as I went through the profession and got more experience was, to a certain extent, my coaching style had to change for each team, for each athlete, for each coach that I worked for. There was just different expectations. So not to go in and think that you're going to be able to be one coach all the time, because it just won't work. I mean, you have to have a switch. I remember I'd come off of a football group at UCLA and go right into a women's soccer group, and there had to be a switch or a dial for me to dial it down a little bit when I went to go work with the women's soccer team, because me throwing F-bombs and cussing at them wasn't going to work the same as it did motivating some of those football players. And at the same time, I found that even though I go into every new job being strict, I had to ease my way into things and really figure individuals out. I learned the hard way a couple times of jumping in and getting on a kid early, and their reaction was opposite of what I was looking for. And if I would have probably eased into that a little bit more, I could have figured that athlete out and handled it a lot better. So, but, just be professional, give 110%, coach them like they're your kid or like you'd want to be coached, and you'll be fine.
Very, very good. I'm about to switch the script here and start talking about a little bit of programming, ask some stuff about that. Do you have anything else to add kind of about the development and managerial piece of things, Coach?
No, I mean, I just think, I think that I took something from every single person that I worked for that made me the coach that I was, worked for and with. But like I just said, don't try to be somebody else. Be you and what your coaching style is, and just continue to improve that as you come up through your career.
Now I got a question because you stimulated in my head. Okay, so I've had a lot of coaches, and I have some right now that work for me that worry sometimes because they don't have that personality that you and I have, where we can, we're loud, we're obnoxious sometimes, we have the ability to get in front of a crowd of people, and we are high energy. For people that have that coaching style, they're more laid back. They're not that type A personality. What advice you have for them, or what words can you give to kind of help them understand that you can still be successful and not be that kind of typical freaking rah strength coach guy. You can still get the job done.
Yeah, I don't think you have to. I'm trying to think how you have to have juice. when you step on the floor, you have to have juice, you have to have passion and energy, but you don't have to. The way I coach doesn't mean that's the way you're going to coach. And I think, I mean, I can only imagine if I had 5 coaches that were running around screaming, yelling in the room, the athletes, they just tune you out. You know, they get overwhelmed. And so to be able to blend a staff like that of people of just slightly different abilities and personalities when they step on the floor is super, super important. So, you know, don't think that you have to run around and have your hair on fire 24/7. Some people are like that and some aren't, but it doesn't make them any less of a coach.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I think as long as you have, like you said earlier, as long as if you're the head guy and you're not that rah dude, you know, as long as you have the juice you're talking about, you hire a guy that is that guy that can be your crazy nut job. But yeah, you definitely don't want 5 of them running around at one time. I couldn't agree more with that.
Yeah.
All right. Does anybody have any questions in here on the managerial piece or developmental piece before I roll into some programming questions?
I have a question.
Yeah, speak up.
Hey, Coach.
What's going on?
Hey, question. What is your number 1 interview question when hiring a staff?
Oh, Coach Green, nice question. Very good.
My number 1 question on the interview is, do you drink beer?
And if you say no, you're fired.
Yeah, that's not going to work out well. No, you know what? That's a good question. I don't know. It's just my number 1 goal when I interview somebody is to find out. I can see your experience and stuff off of your resume. I want to find out who you are. So a lot of times my first question is tell me your story. I want to know, you know, from as far back as you can remember when you were in kindergarten, and tell me about you. Tell me who you are, because that's what I want to know. So I do like when I went out to UCLA the first time, and we went to go interview with Mike and Yas. We were relaxing, drinking some Budweisers, and I was like, wow, this is weird. What the heck am I doing drinking on an interview? But in reality, what I learned is that they were putting me in an environment where I could relax and be myself. And they were just, again, they were trying to find out who I was and what I was about. And that's what I think is important, because the rest of it, I can either teach you or help develop you, or you've already gotten through your past experiences, or you can learn from books and all the information that's out there. I want to know who you are. I want to know that you're a good person. I want to know that you're passionate about what you do. And so that's my number 1 goal when I interview somebody.
Great answer, Coach. Couldn't have said it better myself. Do you remember my exit interview, Coach, when I was an intern? The karaoke bar?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. All right.
Yes, sir.
What?
That's a story for another time.
Yeah, I'll tell you guys that later. All right. Any other questions? Any other questions right now, guys? No. All right. All right. Well, kind of like I said, flipping into some programming stuff now. So, you guys, I mean, I think most of you guys know this, but our template that we use for our technique school, that's I mean, I got the majority of that from Coach Sowers. Coach, I guess just, you progress slow, especially with your young people, and I think we spent 4 weeks in technique school. I think you might even have spent longer than that. Why? Why do you think that's so important? Why do you think it's so important to slow playing before you start putting, just cramming weights on these people's backs and teaching them to move? Well, why is that so important?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, as I got older and wiser in my profession, I found the importance of building a foundation. And when I got to know Joe Ken real well, and one of my first GAs at University of Texas, El Paso, Ben Hilgard, when he worked for Joe, just seeing the what they call, I think, Tier 0, and the foundation that they built with those athletes impressed me. And when I looked at most of my athletes, even my football players, their developmental age in weightlifting was very minimal, even if they were lucky to have a decent weight or strength coach in high school. In reality, that's only 3 or 4 years of experience. And so what I found is that if we taught them great technique and didn't worry about weight, I'll be honest with you, my last freshman blocks ended up into the 12 and 16 week range with some of my groups. And that foundation that was built, the numbers that I was getting after that were unreal. Just because, even like a house, if I have a shitty foundation, the house is going to fall down. If I'm able to build a solid foundation, I can build it as high and as tall and as strong as I want.
Yeah, no, I was very stubborn about that when I first started, and I think we're pressured so much from our coaching staffs, to get these guys in and get them strong, get them moving, and you get these kids in here and you're doing push-ups and iso squats and iso hold positions on the platforms and chin-ups, and the crazy thing is you don't even fucking realize that a lot of these kids can't even do 10 perfect push-ups. They can't. If you give them 3 sets to do, failure chin-ups, they can't do 30 chin-ups. They can't do those things. They can't hold those positions. They have no motor patterns in their upper backs, and they have no posterior chains, and it's like I can't believe that we used to just come here and take a couple weeks to teach them and then just cut them loose and let them start lifting. And if you don't have a good technique school program like what you helped me develop here, you don't see those things. And it's an awesome way to almost, FMS guys on the spot as you move them. You can find ways of doing things, but it's I can't tell you how much it's helped us. I think the biggest issue with us. Go ahead, Coach.
I just think building that foundation that you're constantly, forever going to build upon is so important. I mean, I remember Joe Ken saying one time, he's like, if you have an athlete that just caught a new record of 315 pounds on their clean and their feet are out on the black and one elbow's up and one's down and they're all twisted up, is that a PR? And he's like, hell no, it's not a PR. That's a shitty lift, and I can't do anything with a shitty lift. If you give me if you knock 100 pounds off that, it's only 215 pounds, but they have great technique, I can build on that. I can get them stronger. I can do things with them. And so to start with that foundation and never leave it is critical as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, no, I love it. All right, Coach, so the next piece, this is what you got most frustrated with me about when I interned for you. When I first came here and I was 21 years old, and I was working for you, I had no freaking idea what the CNS was. Not that I literally didn't know what it was, but I had no idea about programming around it. And you always used to tell me, I got to back off on these days and go hard on these days. And I thought you were crazy because, where I come from, Mount Union, we just went freaking hard as shit every day. And we went to complete failure on every lift, and that's just how we did things.
Sure.
Why is that so important? When did you realize that? Because, I think everybody who kind of has the mentality that me and you grow up with, it's go hard every day, go to exhaustion, outwork the guy next to you. Why is that so important? And kind of elaborate on that concept of what really made that be the pillar of your programming.
Yeah, you know what, I can't remember who said it, but somebody said, first of all, we're not working with weightlifters, powerlifters, or bodybuilders, and so we can't train them that way. So the percentages that I would use with a weightlifter are not the percentages I can use for an athlete, because a weightlifter, that's all they do. They lift, eat, sleep, and that's it. An athlete has to go to practice. They have other obligations. They go to school. There's so much more that goes into it, and so we have to train them like they're athletes, not weightlifters. And what I noticed over time is that the body is an amazing organism. It's designed to recover and rebuild and get better every single day. until you put too much stress on it. And as soon as you put too much stress on it, whether that stress is mental or physical or a combination of both, it starts breaking down and doesn't recover fully from workout to workout, from week to week and month to month. And then all of a sudden you're in this overtraining phase, and it takes a long time to get that athlete back. If you ever do, because you don't have coaches, whether it's you or the sport coaches around you, don't have the patience to let that athlete ever come back and fully recover. So the idea of slowly putting stress on the athletes and allowing their bodies to adapt over time really hit home to me early on, and I just kept developing that into the program to the point where at the end of my career, I had athletes that were making their biggest jumps and PRs in the weight room their last max session as a senior. And so they were continually getting better and growing over a 4 or 5 year period. And I tell people all the time, listen, I can throw 20, 30 pounds on you anytime I want, but if you stall out and you hit a plateau and you can't make gains for months on end or years. I mean, how many athletes we know have been stuck at a certain max for 6 months or a year and they just can't get better? Well, what happens if you can take an athlete and make a 5-pound increase? Just think their max is 100 pounds, and you can make a 5-pound increase every single month for 4 or 5 years. Add that up and tell me what that number looks like, and I promise you that there's not an athlete or a coach out there that isn't fired up.
Dude, it's like deja vu hearing you say that. I can literally specifically remember sitting in this office with you when the first time you gave me that talk. And I remember the diagram. It's freaking crazy, dude. I think what people listening probably don't understand is like, it's freaking hard to get dudes. I mean, dudes don't just PR year in and year out. You know, they have usually their biggest gains, obviously, their early careers, and as they get older, it's you're scratching and clawing for PRs if you don't do things the right way. So, I think to say that you're confidently giving guys PRs their senior year and they're hitting their highest and most volume PR they've ever had in their career, that's massively important. If you're getting elite guys to PR like that, that's absolutely critical. I guess so. What's your big piece of advice then? As simple as you can keep it for what you did to kind of hold yourself to that and not let guys overtrain and do those kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the tough piece. I mean, even this past year, I worked at the Bose High School and volunteered and worked with the kids, and that was the biggest thing. I had to constantly reel them back and get them to stop putting too much weight on the bar. So, just getting a system put together where, there'd be times even on a testing day. I don't do true testing days anymore. I do performance weeks, but maybe their max number that day was a 20 kilo or a 20 pound increase, but in reality, their working max number that I update is only a 5 or a 10 pound increase, and so I had to check my ego at the door too, right? I mean, as a strength coach, I want to see those big numbers go up. I want to see those big numbers go on the sheet to go up to coach, and so I had to control myself. But at the end of the day, I'm going to tell you right now that if there's a strength coach out there, or you're a strength coach that thinks it's all about numbers and it's all about strength, you're missing the boat. I honestly think that there's a plateau or there's a wall where really, I mean, if you have an athlete that can squat 500 pounds or 700 pounds, is that going to be the difference in them being dominating on the field? I really don't think so. Strength is a component of it, but there is a number of other components that go into being a great athlete. Otherwise, I say all the time, if it was just about strength, every NFL team in the country would be standing outside Louis Simmons' gym offering millions of dollars to those weightlifters coming out of his gym because those guys are the strongest men in the world. And if that was all it was about, that's where they'd be, and it's not. So there's different components to being an athlete than just strength, and it's important that we realize that and train that and not get caught up in the numbers, and help our coaches and athletes not get caught up into those numbers.
That's awesome. That's freaking awesome. That's one thing I haven't heard you say before. That's great. All right, Coach. Let me. Is anyone else? Coach has got something. He's got to go here too in about 5 minutes. Anybody have any questions? Quick, Coach can answer about anything. Open floor, guys.
Coach, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
You know, as I started like kind of reading and going back on some things that happened earlier on, and we get these athletes that we know they're just not experienced in the weight rooms. They're really good football players, but in the weight room, we know that their training age is so young. When you're picking your movements, specifically like your on-field stuff or your jumping and plyometrics type stuff, how did you sift through all that stuff and figure out, okay, what's going to be the most effective for a very young training age kind of guy?
Yeah, I'd go way back. I work on progressions on almost everything I do, and so I'd step way back into the progressions, and no matter what it was, whether it's my movement training or my weightlifting, and build just on those fundamentals. And to be honest with you, most athletes need that. And but it's tough. I'm not going to lie to you. You know, Coach just said a minute ago about how much pressure is put on you to get these guys in the weight room and get them strong. And come on, in reality, if you got a freshman football player that's going to play or start for you on Saturday, they're a big-time freaking athlete, and they're going to start whether or not you put 10 pounds on their bench or squat in the next 4 weeks or not. And so to get away from that mentality and focus on, I got to get the basics down first. Like Coach Gildersleeve said, wall sits. I'd have them hold isometric positions even on the Olympic list, from high chest to hang position to floor position, for weeks to get them strong out of those important positions, the bottom position, and then learning how to finish that pull on the top. So just breaking it down into as small, as far back into the progression or regression as you can, and then slowly build them up. I think that's the key.
Couldn't agree more. And just so you know, Coach, that's what we do. I'd say at least 90% of our technique school is your program. So thank you for that.
No problem.
All right, what else we got, guys? Anything else for Coach Sowers? Good? All right, well, hey, Coach, freaking awesome stuff, and great to hear some of that stuff again. It's been too long since we've had those conversations, but I really appreciate you coming on, and obviously you're, and I wouldn't be here today without you. I think you know that, but I'd like to say it as much as possible. He taught me everything from my foundation of strength and conditioning to how to develop people, and so my staff knows. I kind of told him earlier, this is you're the one that started my development, and he said I wouldn't be here without you. So I appreciate everything, Coach, today.
No problem. And I hope I hope that you guys realize who you're working for. Coach Gildersleeve, when he was, like he said, going into a senior year, so his junior year, did an internship with me over a summer, and by the end of that summer, I knew he was special. I knew he was someone that I wanted on my staff, period. And so you guys are lucky to be working for one of the best, and he's done nothing but get better and improve from I don't know, how many years has it been now, Coach? 6, 7 years since we were together?
Yeah, this will be my seventh,
How many?
This will be my 7th out.
Wow.
Yep.
So it's, you guys take advantage of it, take as much information and learn from him as much as you can, because he's one of the best.
It means the world for you to say that, Coach. That's it's about the best compliment I could get. So thank you so much, and we all appreciate it. You're now officially a star of the curriculum, Coach. You're freaking more famous now than ever.
Nice.
Dude, all right. And let's chug some beer soon, okay?
All right, sounds good. Beers and sushi.
All right, love you, coach.
All right, brother. Love you too.
All right, see you, my man.
Later.
Bye.